Those of you who are new to the meeting, my name is Alain Barker, and I am the current president of this amazing Bloomington Rotary Club. Today, as always, is a very special day as we gather and celebrate so many things and have a wonderful program that we're looking forward to today as well. Today is also a beautiful day, and it's voting day. So for somebody who was not able to vote until I was 35 years old, it's a very special day. And I hope that you all got out there and voted. And I hope that you all expressed your opinion about anything that you feel strongly about, especially during a week in which the State House decided to defund the Kinsey Institute. The votes that you cast matter to this world in ways that are resonant both within our community and around the state. So thank you so much for all of you who've been involved in this. And thanks especially to Charlotte Zietlow and Jeff Richardson, who right now are at the polling stations supporting and volunteering, making sure that everybody has the right to vote, whichever way they go. So it's a great day. It's an absolutely amazing day. We are going to have hyper happy dollars. We're switching things around today. We've got some really great information to share with you, and I'm going to invite Sarah Laughlin to join me here at the podium. And we're going to talk about, first of all, we're just going to share some information about some of the recipients of the scholarships, both the high school and Ivy Tech scholarships. They have said absolutely amazing things, and we felt that we wanted to just share them with you as we go along. And so maybe you want to just lead off the reflection. Yeah. And we need to make sure that
okay, right, we lower the camera down. So what is our commitment to the scholarships? Many people have asked. And so we wanted to start out by sharing, exactly how much money does it cost us to support our scholarships every year. So for our 3 Ivy Tech scholarships at $500, it's $1,500. For our 4 high school scholarships, another $6,000. So our total budget for scholarships every year is $7,500. Many of you may remember that we used to do this out of our club budget. But when we rejiggered the budget a couple of years ago in the midst of the pandemic and separated the meal charges from the actual cost of dues and running the club, we realized that was an awfully large expense that we just simply could not include in the budget. So we determined right then that we would build the Rotary Foundation endowment to try to cover the costs of those scholarships over time. We knew we weren't going to be able to get there in year 1, but that's our goal. So that's the number that we're looking for. So what difference do our scholarships make, Alain?
Thank you very much, sir. Well, so we're just going to read through some of the letters that we've received from recipients, one of whom, let me see here, is Alex Grannon. And Alex was actually here 3 weeks ago. She's from Ivy Tech, leading a very difficult life with family, but incredibly innovative in the ways that she's leading her life. And she's now become an entrepreneur. And she said, one of those challenges while I was thinking about continuing my education was really to be able to get into the classes that I believed in. And today, I received a phone call from the financial office and was surprised with a scholarship. I wish I could put into words what this meant to me. I don't think I can, but I'll try. It felt like validation that this is the right path, validation that following my dream may have the costs, but also it has its rewards. Validation that my struggles to get here and my current path filled with struggles are all worth it. Thanks to us.
And Amy Osajima followed up with our high school scholars last year, and we have some reports back from them. So Caitlin Wong said, I've been having a wonderful time at Indiana University. So far, I'm majoring in molecular life sciences with minors in chemistry, psychology, and East Asian languages. And I'm part of the Women in STEM Living Learning community. I'm also engaged in a genetics lab research lab studying cell development and pathway systems. And I've continued with my many extracurriculars and passions. I'm still playing the violin and running. I had a pleasant experience with the Rotary Scholarship process. The application required at least 1 letter of recommendation, so I would advise future applicants to seek out their letter writers ahead of time. Through the interview, I enjoyed meeting the different Rotary members and hearing about their experience as part of the organization, and I enjoyed sharing my passions and interests with the board. I am so immensely grateful for Bloomington Rotary's support and generosity through the scholarship. The scholarship has relieved some of the financial burden of paying for college and allowed me to focus on my academics so that I can continue to major in 4 things and represent my community and expand my knowledge and abilities to the fullest.
So we'll go to our second Ivy Tech student who received funding from us this year. These are 3 Ivy Tech students who've received money this year. So her name is Ariel Fletcher. And she says, every single dollar I receive from scholarships and financial aid is an absolute blessing. It allows me to pursue my degree and keep my family fed and my bills paid while doing so. I'm going to school for myself, but especially for my son. His father is completely out of the picture, and I do not receive child support, unfortunately. I so badly yearn for a good college education and a career so that I can give him everything that he not only needs, but wants. This is my dream, and with help from people like you, I can make it a reality.
Just an amazing difference between you're making. Back to the freshman class, this note from Annie Tran. I really like IU in my classes. College is keeping me busy, but I really like being independent and making my own schedule. I would love to share my experience last year with the scholarship process and what the scholarship means to me. I was really excited to hear that I was being offered an interview for the scholarship. I was nervous at first because there were so many people in the interviewing room. But everyone was so nice that I felt more comfortable and relaxed while answering the questions. Receiving the Rotary Scholarship meant a lot to me because it helped me pay for college. I'm very grateful that the Rotary Club believed in me and invested in my education. I'm in the Rotaract Club at IU because I believe in the principles that Rotary stands for. Through the Rotaract Club, I get to give back to the community by volunteering at local organizations and making a positive impact.
Amazing. So this is the 3rd student that we supported this year, whose name is Peyton Hyde. And he says, I'm an early childhood education major, and I'm currently a sophomore with 13 credits and 19 planned for the fall semester. After graduation, I plan to earn my bachelor's online. I plan to get licensed so that I'm able to teach in public school. Because of this generous scholarship, I'm one step closer. I'm now able to focus on my education and not have to worry about the cost. Thank you for your generosity.
And Bella Bueller says, this school year has been absolutely amazing. The wonderful connections and opportunities that IU has given me have been life-changing. I've been able to get involved by joining my residence hall student government, as well as multiple clubs ranging from the neuroscience club to the knitting club on campus. Looking back, I still feel so honored to have been a recipient of this scholarship, to have been able to stand up and speak with 3 of my close and exceptionally dedicated peers was a truly validating experience. It made the effort we all brought forth toward our academic and extracurricular goals feel so acknowledged by our community. That feeling is mind-blowing. Still gives me encouragement to work just as hard today. Thank you so much for believing in my academic dreams and the pursuits of all upcoming graduates. I will never forget it. So that's the impact of our scholarships on these young people in our community. And I think they won't forget it. They will remember for the rest of their lives. So today we have an opportunity for you to participate in helping us reach that $7,500 for this year.
Should we go through the numbers for them?
Yeah.
Sure. So the second tab that we put, I'm very excited about what's happening in this club because there's a way that we're scaffolding into the number that we showed you, the $7,500. And we're not asking you today for $7,500. Don't worry, nothing like that. So the way that it works is that there is a foundation account that produces cash that is available to scholarships. And you can see the CFBMC, the Community Foundation of Bloomington Monroe County, it has already produced $2,100 toward the $7,500. In addition to that, we have the 80-20 program in the club that you've been told about through the year, which are basically quarterly contributions to the foundation that we all give as we go along. it has accumulated $2,500. So there's some money there that's getting us towards our goal. And then we have a memorial fund for when anybody dies, passes away. We have an opportunity as a club to contribute to the foundation in memory of that individual. And there's 565 available for that. So the total that we've already raised towards the $7,500 is $5,210. In addition, next slide, please. The very generous past presidents and current board clubbed together over the last week and produced $1,200, which are going to be used today to support and underwrite any gifts that come through the Hyper Happy Dogs. So thank you so much. Let's give them a round of applause. That was really fantastic. So rather than asking you for $7,500, we're actually all going to be sharing our path towards $1,000 today. So if we go to the next tab, we're going to do this like we're basically going to call out anybody who wants to give a gift. We're going to put the gift in the left-hand column. It will be doubled in the right-hand column, and we have a total goal of $2,290 together. So who would like to, and anybody online, by the way, if you're listening to this online, please open up your microphone because we cannot speak, we cannot see you or speak to you. So just blurt out anything that you want to do, but I'm going to go, do you want to take it first?
Right.
Yeah.
Woo!
500.
Thank,
Oh, hold on. That's the amount that has
1,200.
already been, we've already got the $1,200.
Double counting.
Oh, thank you. Okay, good.
I have,
Okay.
for Happy Dollars, I want to say one thing very serious, another thing just a little more on the light side, but I have $100 here to give, and it's in honor and in memory of Ron Jensen. Ron Jensen died exactly a year ago this week. And he was the great supporter of Teachers Warehouse and all things educational. So I just wanted to do that. But then I also wanted to say that last Tuesday, instead of the fine program that you had here, which I watched online, I was at the Gorham, Maine Rotary Club, and I was able to thank them for something very special. I said, thank you for sending us Mackenzie to play ball for us at IU. She was from Gorham High School. They were very glad to hear that. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. And I believe, are you putting in 100 for that, Tim? Thank you. $100. Great. Ron.
I missed the board meeting, so.
Aha, Ron. Very good. So Ron's putting in 100. That's amazing.
I am going to contribute $100 as well.
100 for Dave. Thank you, Dave. Do you want to take the microphone and thank everybody?
Lynn's got $10.
For Kira, one of my employees who's getting a scholarship.
All right, woo! And Aaron, you had a pledge. $100 from Aaron.
I want to contribute 100 to the scholarship fund. Too.
And Steve Engel has $100. Thank you, Steve.
I don't mean to be a cheapskate, but here are $23 for the class of 23.
Every little bit helps. Thank you, Judy Schroeder.
I'll put in another $100.
Who was that? That was Dick McKay. And Trent Deckard.
$100, please.
From Trent Deckard. Thank you so much. Here's Hank over here. And
does anybody
Tim.
online want to chime in?
I'll jump in. $50 from Joy.
$50 from Joy Harder.
Tim Riffle, here we go. Another 100.
$100 from Tim. And 100 from Peggy Frisbee and Hank. No, wait a minute. I don't know your name.
$60. The airport.
$60 from Carlos at the airport.
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
$25.
$25 from Bill Brown. They just can't see you guys over there.
Malcolm Abrams.
$100.
$100 from Hank.
$4.
$54. $54 from Malcolm.
And then see where we are.
And
can you scroll down to see where we are with the goal?
And I've got 20 from myself. 20 from me.
20 from Art Omick.
And 20 from Art. And
Yeah. Oh.
Tracy.
100 for my dad, stepmom, and son in France.
Okay, thank you very much, Winston.
$50.
$50. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
$50 from Ruth Boschkoff in honor of her 4 daughters.
Wow, that is incredible. Anybody else want to jump in before we finish our happy?
That is some hyper
Folks,
happy.
The good news is right in front of you.
Woo!
The goal was 2,290.
Wow.
And don't worry, we'll save that to give us ourselves a boost for next year.
Thank you so much, Sarah. And just to let you know that the Fountain of Youth program continues. We are hopefully in a year or two we'll be able to get to the point where the endowment will have grown to the point where it will sustain our scholarship activity indefinitely. So this is basically filling in the gap for a period of time until we can do that as a club for forever. So thank you so much. This is, as you know, changing lives and making this town a truly wonderful place. Great. Okay, continuing our celebration. That's amazing. It's amazing to be able to share generosity like this in such a celebratory way. Very special. We have birthdays to celebrate. Malcolm. It's okay. That's great. So we have birthdays to celebrate here. Judy Schroeder, happy birthday, May 5th. Yeah, fantastic. We have Joy Harder, who is the fountain of joy in our lives. May 6th. What a wonderful month for Joy to have a birthday. We have some heavy hitter anniversaries today as well. First of all, before I even get to those anniversaries, I want to celebrate and thank Natalie Blaze for being such a spectacular person in this club, assisting the presidents as well as everybody else. She has been with our club for 5 years. Thank you. Thank you, Natalie. Natalie, you really are at the center of what we do. Okay, so the two heavy hitters, Glenda Murray, 32 years. Congratulations. Yeah. And then the other one is Joyce Polling, who's been with us for 34 years, which is totally fantastic. Okay, Greer, did we have guests? Greer Carson, who's one of our new members. It's great to have you. Looking forward to the opening of your library branch. Was it June 9th? June 9th.
Yes, much more info on that to come very soon, but today I'm here to mispronounce some of our guests' names. We are delighted to have Ladan Jovanovic, guest of Tracy Jovanovic. We have Mark Peterson, guest of Steve Engel. We have John Wolf, who's guest of James Wolf. We have Gerano Rotis, guest of Jim Bright. Some stranger named Malcolm Abrams, who's also a guest of Jim Bright. And most importantly, we have one Lucy Deckard, guest of Trent and Kyla Deckard, who says not retired on this list. So good to know you're not retired. Thank you.
And I believe there's at least one or two prospective members of the club in the group of our guests, which is so thank you. It's great to have you with us. James, I knew that you wanted to say something about your gift earlier on. Do you want to just, what's that? Oh, you didn't get your gift in. Well, we can still do it. Okay, come yeah. James has just run a half marathon. Incredible. And you want to,
Okay, I'll add $100 for doing this too. So hopefully you can. We moved here 4 years ago, and shortly after that, we met, among other runners, Alon's wife, Liz. And so that was 4 years ago. He can correct me here. About 2 years ago, she suffered a spinal stroke and was told she'd never walk again. She was part of our group last 2 weeks ago, and she ran a half marathon. up in Toledo. So that was very, very significant.
Well, I collect myself. Yeah, thank you, James. Okay, and it's great to have you as a friend, really. Okay, I want to just give a few club updates here. We had an incredible time over the weekend with It Takes a Village. It was so special. Gabe Coleman, as you well know, is a good friend of ours. He's president of the Bloomington North Club, and he arranged it all. And Marilyn Wood was helping coordinate the volunteers. And this is some of the pictures as we go along. I'm just going to read out the names of the other people who were involved. I was there. Amy Osajima was there. Art Omick was there. Hank Walter. Izzy Torrey was there. Jim Bright, Jim Shea, Joy Harder, Peggy Frisbee, and Sarah Laughlin. What a great group of people. So let's congratulate and thank them all for being part of this very special. And Joy, I basically jumped right over the possibility of guests online. Do we have any guests online today?
We do, Alon. We have joining us David Rogers, guest of Jim Bright.
Great, excellent. Welcome, welcome. Yeah, yeah. Okay, and now it's time to think about art. Sally's going to join me here at the podium and introduce our guests, our speakers.
So I don't know about you, fellow Rotarians and guests, but whenever I walk into this building, the IMU, I look at the walls. There is so much art. It's fantastic. And so we're really lucky today to have the two people in charge of that art. Hank Walter is, of course, a member of our club and also serves as executive director of the Indiana Memorial Union. His baseball affiliations are the Dodgers and the Cardinals. Katie Chattin has for 10 years been associate director of campus art for IU's University Collections. Her department of 5 manages more than 20,000 works of public art and objects throughout the Indiana University system, 9 campuses, while also assisting with IU's 200 plus varied collections. Originally from Vincennes, Katie holds a degree in fine art photography from the Heron School of Art and Design at IUPUI. Following art school, she received a master's degree in museum studies with a focus in fine arts, also at IUPUI. Prior to coming to Bloomington, she managed the Cultural Arts Gallery at the IUPUI Campus Center. Welcome, Hank and Katie.
Wherever you want to be.
You're up first.
Yes. So, and really, Katie is the expert on the art. I'm here to more give context. So, because not every union on every college campus has an art collection, especially not one like this. And it really gets, sometimes we get asked why, especially when we host visitors from other campus unions around the country or other campuses. And it really gets to why we have a union and what that mission is. And really, which goes back to 1909 when students came together, led by a student named John Wittenberger, as in Wittenberger Auditorium, to give students activities, programs, places to go, things to do that were productive, that were meaningful, and that helped them feel like they belong. Belonging is really a word you're hearing a lot in higher ed these days. It's in the campus strategic plan and all that. And it's at the core of what the union's mission is all about, helping people feel connected to the campus, to each other, and feel like they belong here. And actually belonging is important, not just because of the feel good, fuzzy feelings, but actually there's research out there that shows that sense of belonging connects to retention in school and graduation rates. And so it's more than just we want everybody to feel good and have that warm, fuzzy feeling. And we hope too that the union can not just support and strengthen that sense of community on campus, but do it so well that when visitors come here, they see that vibrant campus community and want to be a part of it, right? Whether they're potential students, undergrad or grad, or maybe they're potential faculty at some point in their life, or potential staff, or anything like that. That's part of why we're here. The art collection, to me, is special in that it has a mission too, right? We want to build art into the day-to-day life of the campus community, especially because we know there are lots of students out there who maybe have had limited exposure to art before. One of my favorite things, just wandering around the building every day, is when I see someone who stops and takes a look at the art on the wall. And appreciates it. And I think about, hopefully, they're a student and maybe this is something they don't see every day, or they don't get a chance to see. And the other piece is we do try to highlight, and the collection highlights Indiana art, whether that's art that was created in Indiana, or is about Indiana, or is done by an Indiana artist. But really, the person who knows the most about the art is Katie Chattin. So I'm going to turn it over to my friend and colleague, Katie.
Thank you, Hank. All right, well, thank you so much for having me. This is really fun. I've never attended one of these meetings before. I've already spoken to a few of you who have connections to my work and what it is that I do. I'm short. And so it's been fun getting to know a couple of you already, and what it is that you see in this building and what it is that you love. So I'm excited to be here. As Sally said, I am the director of the campus art department, which is a part of University Collections. We serve all 9 IU campuses, maintaining all of the objects and artwork that you see not in a museum. So when you walk these halls, when you walk campus and you see the beautiful sculptures, that is the work that I do. This, as Sally said, comprises 20,000 and plus objects. And it's built by the generosity of donors, both monetary donors and in-kind donors. I was just speaking with Ruth Boschkoff here, and she gave a piece to our collection in the law school. So those are the kind of donors that we work with as they downsize or whatever it might be, to bring artwork into the collection. Hank covered this a little bit, but the IMU collection is robust, and it's largely built by the interests of the union board. So the students that walk these halls that have an interest here. Many pieces you'll notice have a little note on the label that says it came from a donor, not necessarily union board. So there are pieces here that come from Generous Friends of Indiana University, but the bulk of the collection comes from union board. They've been collecting since 1914, am I right there? 1912. So the artwork goes way back, typically 1 a year. There's been a bit of a lull here lately, but Hank and I are working hard to bring that back to speed. But really just, I'm lucky to do the work that I do. I'm lucky to work with Hank and get to oversee what happens in this building. So I've got a bit of a PowerPoint presentation that hopefully can pop up here soon. It was tough to figure out what to do given our kind of short amount of time here. So I've rounded up a quick list of some of the most popular pieces in the building, some of the pieces I get the most questions about. So I may not cover your favorite piece, I'm very sorry. Hank and I can take questions at the end, but I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about some of my favorites, some of the community's favorites, and then we can chat a little bit after that. So some of you may recognize this piece. This is Halloween by O.O. Haig, dedicated to the Union Board, 1941, actually. So they purchased this piece. It was painted in 1936 and features the artist's daughter, Martha. Has everybody seen this piece? Are you familiar with it? It is a fan favorite. But the story is sweet. Martha reached out to us not too long ago to let us know that it was in fact her in the portrait. And she said that when the portrait was painted, she was about 6 years old. And she remembers that when her father sold the painting for around $35, she went to him and said, if she was the model, she rightfully deserved half of that $35. So it's a sweet little story. And this painting has quite a bit of lore around it here at the university. I often hear it's haunted at Halloween, this, that, the eyes follow me while I'm eating lunch. But really just a sweet piece, a good little story. We don't know much else about it, but it has always been, since I've been here, a favorite. So moving on, another portrait here. This is Rashawn Roland Kirk, painted by Joel Washington. Kirk, born in Columbus, Ohio, was an American jazz musician and a multi-instrumentalist. If you look closely, you can see around his neck there, he played several instruments simultaneously. So his main instrument was the tenor saxophone, but he also supplemented using other saxophones and the lighter sound of the flute. You can see the flute kind of up there at his mouth. At times, evidently, he played a number of these horns at once. I don't quite understand how that is possible, but that's what they say. And his portrait is here in the Union because unfortunately, he was performing here in 1977 and suffered a stroke after that performance and passed away. So we commemorate him here in these halls with this portrait. As I mentioned, painted by Joel Washington. Joel Washington is a self-taught artist and also a member of the staff here at the Indiana Memorial Union. He works on their maintenance crew, and you'll often see Joel walking the halls here. And if you do, stop him and ask him about his paintings. There are a couple here in the building, and he loves to tell about the work. There's always a fun story. Joel is a great storyteller. So another Union connection there with this piece. It is located on the second floor if you haven't had a chance to take a look. Continuing on the second floor, we have another portrait, but a bit different than the last. This is Portuguese Whaler, painted by Randolph Coates, a Brown County artist. Some of you may recognize that name. He also had a studio on the coast, the East Coast. And the story behind this painting goes that the artist was working in his studio on the East Coast when a man walked in and sat down without saying anything. And after a few minutes, the artist decided, well, I might as well paint a portrait. We've got a subject here. And he painted for hours. The man stood up and he held out his hand for payment. And the artist assumed that the man was Portuguese. He didn't speak any English, but he had heard from his friends in the port that if he sat for a portrait, he would be paid. So that's exactly what he did. He just went in and sat down and it worked out. And we have this lovely portrait here dedicated to the Indiana Memorial Union Board, 1944. So another piece purchased by the students. Continuing along that second floor corridor, we have Water Buffalo here, painted by Fernando Amorsolo. We've got a bit of an international corridor there. Amorsolo was a Filipino artist and a very well-known Filipino artist. This piece is a gift of J.B.H. Martin, and we're very grateful to have it because we probably wouldn't have been able to acquire one of these works had it not been for our donor here. This painterly landscape shows a water buffalo working in the fields near the Sierra Madre Mountains. And I like to point it out because this piece underwent extensive conservation. So when I arrived here, the varnish, so the clear coat that goes over the top of the paint, had yellowed to the point you could not see the detail in the field. You wouldn't have recognized that there was hay bales in the back. You could barely see the water buffalo. So please, if you have a chance, go upstairs and take a look at this because it's amazing what conservation can do. It's beautiful, it's vivid, it's vibrant, and those donor dollars are what helps this, the work be able to be done. But a beautiful representation here of what that does. So coming on downstairs, some of you may recognize Ugolino and his sons. This sculpture stands outside of the University Club, just there in the ramp. And I like to talk about this piece because it's one of the ones I get the most questions about. It came to us aboard the Merci train, sent to the United States, specifically to Indiana by the citizens of France as an expression of gratitude for the friendship train, which was sent to France from the United States. So the Merci train came with a boxcar for every state. This was aboard Indiana's boxcar. We were very lucky. I believe the boxcar actually still exists up in northern Indiana. I am contacted every once in a while by people who research the Merci train, trying to track down all the stuff that was on every boxcar in every state. Just really an interesting little bit of American history. But this piece we were lucky to receive. It is, as I mentioned, Ugolino and his sons, completed in Paris in 1881. It was cast in bronze and placed in the Tuileries garden. Today, you can see it in the Louvre. The original bronze is at the Louvre. We, of course, have a plaster cast. We believe that the artist here, Jean-Baptiste Carpeaux, was reading Dante's Inferno and was inspired by that. Ugolino is mentioned in that text, saying, in anguish of despair, I bit my hands. You can see him kind of with his hands up near his face. Ugolino was arrested and imprisoned, shut up in a tower, and starved to death with his sons. So that's what's depicted here. It's not the most happy story, but a really, really beautiful piece. And of course, we're lucky to have it. Moving on, how could I do a presentation like this without mentioning TC Steele, right? I'm sure all of you are familiar with steel, but I'm hoping I've picked one here that maybe you haven't taken a close look at. This piece is Munich, Germany. It is located in the Tudor Room. And I call it out because, like many aspiring Midwestern painters, from 1880 to 1885, Steele studied in Munich at the Royal Academy. And while he was there, his studies were funded by an Indianapolis patron, Herman Lieber. Some of you may be familiar with Lieber. And Steele said he would repay Lieber in paintings. So he would paint while he was in Germany, roll them up, ship them back to Indiana. And that's how the payment worked. And so this is one of the pieces that he painted while he was in Germany. This is a twilight view of Munich dating to 1884 or so. But following T.C. Steele's death, his wife sold his remaining artwork and often signed his name in his absence. So here, it's a little hard to see in my picture here, but stop by the Tudor Room, take a look. You will see T.C. Steele's name, but in this instance, she signed her name on the front of the painting. So underneath his name, it will say Selma. It's just kind of a really interesting way. Typically, she signed on the back. We know which one she signed later on. We can see that. But for whatever reason, on this day, she signed right in the front. So take a little closer look if you haven't noticed it before. This is a beautiful little painting, a little bit different from what you see, typically Indiana scenes, fall scenes, but a nice representation of his work as a student. One of the questions I get most often is, what is the oldest piece in the collection? This is it. These two windows you can find in the memorial room. They are Flight into Egypt and Adoration of the Magi. French windows, we don't know who made them, but they date back to 1290 AD, so they're very old. They belong to Booth Tarkington. He was known for going over to Europe and doing antiquing. So in the memorial room, you also see a beautiful mantle and a desk. Those also belong to Booth. He had a home on North Meridian Street that was filled with all of these things. And when he passed away, Wendell Wilkie took over that estate. Wilkie, of course, politician from Indiana and the 1940 Republican nominee for president. Wilkie took over that estate. He removed the things from the house, and a number of those things came to Indiana University from Wilkie in memory of his friend Booth. So these two windows are the oldest things that I get to take care of, and quite old, but quite beautiful if you haven't seen them. To wrap up, I won't take up all of your time, but this is the newest piece that we have here in the collection. This is a portrait of Jim Thorpe. Jim, of course, a member of the Sac and Fox Nation, a descendant of the Citizen Potawatomi Nation. He began his athletic career at Pennsylvania's Carlisle Indian Industrial School and was a member of the 1912 Olympic track team. I'm sure many of you are familiar with him. In 1914, IU hired C.C. Childs as its head football coach, and C.C. was on the Olympic team with Thorpe. He called his friend and said, hey, come and help me, assistant head football coach. He worked at IU for 1 year. But the wonderful thing about this piece is that it was jointly commissioned by the First Nations Educational and Cultural Center and the Indiana Memorial Union Board. So the two groups came together. The artist here is Stephen Paul Judd. He drew the portrait. It's quite large. If you haven't seen it, it's outside the new dining area, and brought it in bare canvas with a pencil drawing on the front. It sat on an easel, if I'm correct. And members of the campus community were allowed to paint portions of this painting. So think of kind of a paint by number situation. Hank, did you paint anything? You did? Okay. Okay, so Hank participated too. I didn't get to be here that day, so I don't have a part in this, but I just think that's a wonderful way us to have a great portrait of a figure that was important here, but also to allow our students in our community to participate in the art in this building, just in some small way. So the newest painting here, we're excited to have it. And that's quick and dirty, but we don't have a ton of time. Here is my information. If you'd like to get in touch with me, I'd love to hear from you. Hank's information as well. And we can take any questions that you have.
Before we go into questions, I just want to provide a little bit more context of some things. I think Katie did an excellent job of giving you a sense of kind of the breadth of the collection. And Union Board, until sometime in the 70s, purchased at least one piece every year. But really, at sometime in the 70s, they stopped doing that. And so we've only had a few pieces that have been purchased by the union or Union Board since then. Almost everything since then were donation pieces donated generally. And so the result of that is really the collection reflects its time. So when we start to think about the future of the collection, we are trying to work towards adding more new pieces that create more breadth to the collection. And by that, I mean, the vast majority of our collection is oil paintings, and the majority of that are landscapes and portraits of old white men. And when you go back to thinking about that, creating that sense of belonging and that being part of our mission, we'd like to, and the mission of exposing students to more in art, we'd like to have more in different and more modern art as well, that could expose some students who might not be interested in the oil paintings, but might love something more modern or some glass art or whatever to that. So we're hoping to gradually chip away at that. We've had some alums step up and give us some money to help do that. So Union Board will be adding to that collection, hopefully within the next few months. So that's kind of the future and where we're going with that. But with that, I'll turn it back over for questions.
I might have a question for you. Right now? Yeah. Oh, I think he's got a mic.
Real fast, you identified the location of every single one of those pieces except the very first. Where was it?
Oh, I'm sorry. The tutor room. Yep.
Would you tell the group about the portraits or in the lobby? Our first ladies?
Oh, sure. So the East Lounge, I believe is what you're talking about, features a Women of IU exhibition that was started 2016, 18, 14. Okay, goes back a little further than I thought. The presidential portraits used to be in that space. I don't know how many of you remember. And Michael McRobbie initiated President's Hall over at Franklin Hall with the new media school. So all of the president's portraits had to move out. My previous boss, Sherry Rouse, some of you may remember Sherry, the president came to her and said, they have to move, but don't make them miss them. Whatever you do, don't make them miss the president. So her solution, wonderfully so, was the Women of IU exhibit. So it features notable women throughout IU's history. We're adding to that exhibit as we can. Bridging the Visibility Gap has been a project that has really helped us to paint notable women throughout IU's history. And I would always take a recommendation. If you know someone or if there's someone that you think is missing from our collection, please reach out to me because I haven't been here that long. I don't know the history as some of you do. So if there's somebody that you think really deserves to be on those walls, please let me know. But it is a beautiful exhibit. It includes our first ladies and just a number of women from that School of Education, the School of Music, you name it. We've tried to kind of broaden that.
Could you tell us about the art that's at the McCullough School? I just don't know much about it, but I heard and I'm interested.
Yes, I sure can. So the McCullough School is the other arm of my job. So University Collections, as Sally mentioned, takes care of more than 200 collections throughout IU's system. And the McCullough School was initially it was an elementary school, but more recently housed the School of Fine Art. I believe their sculpture and woodworking program. And in 2019 or so, they moved out to a beautiful new building. And President McRobbie's idea was to create a space where all of those 200 collections would have the opportunity to be supported and also exhibit what it is that they do, their research, their work, their objects. So that building houses 8 galleries that rotate relatively often. I think we've been open for a year. We've rotated maybe 3 of them twice. So the galleries are all full right now. But with works from various collections. So the Campus Art Collection is represented. We have an exhibit on Morton Bradley, his sculpture work. We just recently opened an exhibit of Barry Gelt, former faculty member here, his paintings. He taught in the building, which is really a fun connection. So that's what the building does. There's a number of artworks that hang in there permanently, but the galleries change with exhibits from the collections across campus. It is. We're open from 12 to 5, Tuesday through Friday, and 1 to 4 on Saturday. Yep.
Okay, I have a question and I also have an observation. So I'll start with the statement. Is that I've been back in Bloomington for 13 years, and it was the combination of the IMU art and the auditorium's art that inspired me to begin a modest Indiana art collection. So I've try to mimic that and buy things at estate sales and so on. So I have a few of your artists represented. The question is, how much of the art collection is in storage versus on display?
That is a great collection. Great question about the collection. I would say, I say 20,000 objects and artwork. We also take care of the executive residences. So those 20,000 objects include teacups, rugs, settees, you name it, really. I would guess we've probably got about 5,000 in storage, if I was guessing. And the reason for that is largely the expense behind preparing the artwork for public display. So you'll notice in this building, the oil paintings are covered with glass. And I often hear, what are you doing? You don't cover an oil painting with glass. Well, we run into a lot of I don't want to say trouble, that's maybe the wrong word, but it's true. People come through and they might have had a little bit to drink, or they might be a little upset. You might have lost their basketball game, you don't know. But things get damaged. And the glazing, was what we call the glass that's in front of those oil paintings, is bulletproof. Thank goodness we've never had a bullet. But Hank can say, in this building, we've had razor blades, we've had keys, we've had carts, we've had fists, truly, you name it. And that glass will not shatter. So no impact will damage what is behind it. So that's why it's there. It protects the artwork. Our insurance policy requires it. And it is expensive. So the reason that so many things are in storage is because the cost of that framing, that housing, falls to the requesting department. My department doesn't have the budget to bring everything up to public display standards. So I wait for someone like Hank to come along with some money and help me get things up on the wall. And he's a great sport. But that is why so much of it ends up in storage. So collecting now, I like to say we collect with a lot more intention. We are a lot more thoughtful. Part of the reason for the creation of university collections was to put a mission behind what it is that we do. So often if I'm talking to a donor, I'm looking at things, I'm deciding, where could that go? Do I have a department that can get that on the wall? Will it sit in storage? And if so, I want to be upfront with that person. It might sit in storage until someone requests it, because there is a expense behind it. And often a donor is willing to put some money towards it to help get things on the wall. So it just really depends, but I would guess about 5,000 objects.
Can I just add really quickly? Back in the early 80s, there was an incident of vandalism, and one of the paintings was damaged significantly, I think with a razor blade or something like that. And all of you pretty much know Winston Shadell, who was executive director of the union at the time, started an art restoration fund. So we now have a nice endowment that pays for the preservation. It won't pay for the purchase of new art, but it pays for the preservation and display, which is how we're able to support Katie's work and support the art collection.
Yep.
Since we're in the Georgian room, tell us about the two portraits over there.
Oh, goodness. I am gonna have this is Alice Bluegown here in the back. She's partially covered up by the coat rack. That is Alice Bluegown. Off the top of my head, the artist isn't coming to me, but the interesting thing about her is the color of her dress. And I'm not gonna, Arnold Tuttle. Her dress is, I'm not gonna be able to think of the name of the president. Read a little further in that label. Roosevelt. Is it Eleanor? Okay. The color of the dress is pale ice blue, and it's related to, I believe, one of the first ladies. Is that true? So there you go. Alice Bluegown, because of the connection to Teddy Roosevelt's pale ice blue. They're in the White House. Okay, artist is LaChance. Will Vaughters. So not one of the Hoosier Group artists, but an artist that worked very closely to the Hoosier Group. So we've got George LaChance, the artist painting, Will Vaughter, a fellow artist. I wish I could keep all of these in the back of my mind, but I can't. I know.
Thanks, Michael. So about probably 12, 15 years ago, I had the opportunity to tour the Met's suite up at the top of the hotel, and it was just filled with amazing bronze sculpture. Number one, are those sculptures still there, and is that part of the collection that you oversee?
Yes, it is part of the collection that I oversee. There are some still there. The Met Suite underwent a renovation
2017, I think.
Okay. And it is now used as kind of the Board of Trustees.
The Board of Trustees pretty much owns the suite and has, so you can't, it is a penthouse suite, you could call it, but none of us can go in and reserve it. It's kind of handled through the board office.
Yes. So Arthur Metz was a local doctor, I believe.
Go ahead. You want me to take it?
Yeah, go ahead.
So Arthur Metz was a surgeon from Chicago and a close friend of Herman Wells. And the major addition to the building that included the Biddle Hotel when it went up in the late 50s and it opened in 1960, that's about when Metz was looking at retiring. And you may be familiar with the Metz Theater and the Metz Carillon. He was a wonderful, not just a wonderful surgeon who pioneered some great surgical methods, but also a wonderful alum who cared a lot about IU. And the idea was he would retire. They put an apartment up there for him that he would retire to at the, and he furnished it and decorated it and then passed away before he actually moved in. And for many years, it was kept in the way that he had decorated it, but over time, both some things deteriorated. He had a lot of, you might call it taxidermy hunting trophies that over 60 years start to decay, and then also just things happen over 60 years, and sometimes it's things like a new university president walks through and says, "I really like that piece of furniture. I'd love to have it in my office," or sometimes it's just an accident happens. And so we redecorated and redid it in 2017 or 2018 as part of the hotel. It still, Phil's over there nodding, it still is really meant to be in homage or an homage, I don't know, to Metz. And there's still a lot of his stuff up there, but there are some other things that have found other homes in the collection or.
Yes. And some of the bronzes, if you're looking for them, can be found in the Bryan House. It's a little harder to get in there nowadays because President Winton does live there. But when Michael McRobbie was president, we moved quite a few into that home. So that's where a number of them are.
Hank, students have always been at the heart of the union. And you mentioned that the union board selects the art. How does that work? I never knew that.
Well, I'm looking back there at Steve Moberly to see if he remembers how it worked when he was on the board as a student. My understanding is in the past, a lot of it, there's a show every year called the Hoosier Salon with, at the State Museum, and that Harold Jordan, one of Winston's predecessors, was very involved with. And there was often a purchase prize or something like that that Union Board did related to the Hoosier Art Salon.
Thank you to Katie and Hank. Just really fabulous to have you both with us, and so wonderful to have Hank in the club. It's really very special. Such a great person here. So thank you all so much. I want to thank the greeter, Marilyn Wood. Thank you so much for greeting everybody today. Greer, thank you for introducing our guests. Joy, always to be online and supporting us. Bob Zaltzberg is our reporter for the month, and it's going to be great to see what he comes up with. Michael Shemus, thank you so much for your help. And then likewise, Tyler. So next week, we will celebrate our scholarship recipients. That will be the fun that we have next week. And also want to just thank you both in honor of your presence here today. We support HealthNet Bloomington for the quarter. So that's in thanks to you. I should quickly mention, just I've got 1 second here. There's a painting of Martin Luther King. I think you're all aware of it. You go down the corridor, there's a big portrait of Martin Luther King, painted by Ashley Ward, a South African artist. Turns out Ashley Ward was a student of my mother's in Durban, South Africa, before he came to study art here. Isn't that amazing? So there we go, small world. And my father operated on him. What can I say? Okay, and he was a good friend. So with that, let's do the 4-way plus 1 test. Oh, yeah, good. Of the things we think, say, or do, first, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? Fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned? And fifth, is it fun? Thank you all very, very much.